Welcome, everybody, to this first of three webinars hosted around the 2026 VNR process and the voluntary national reviews. I'm Ollie Henman. I'm one of the co-chairs of the major groups and other stakeholders, and I'm really delighted to be here today alongside Nelia Rakimova, who guides our VNR task group. And of course, we are very grateful to have the presence of Tonya Maturi from UN, the Department of Economic and Social Affairs, UNDESA, who will be guiding us through some of the key steps for you to consider as we plan ahead for the voluntary national reviews. As you know, we're only 5 years to go now until 2030, and many countries are reporting for the second, third, fourth time. And so it's more important than ever that we have all voices heard in the VNRs as countries start to bring forward evidence of progress and also begin to look ahead towards the final years of the 2030 agenda. So it's really wonderful to see many colleagues joining from all around the world. We hope that this will be very informative for you. There is a session tomorrow, also in French, and on Thursday in Portuguese for those who would like other languages. So without any further ado, I'd like to pass over to Tonya to get us started. Over to you, Tonya.
Thank you very much, Ali, and greetings to all who are joining the webinar today. We're so grateful for your participation and your interest in being part of this work. My name is Tanya Vaturi, and I am with UNDESA, the Office of Intergovernmental Support and Coordination for Sustainable Development is the office within the department that serves as the core secretariat for the High-Level Political Forum on Sustainable Development. So today I'd like to just give you a very brief overview of the voluntary national reviews that are presented at the HLPF. And then Nelia will speak more about how you can become involved in the VNR process. So I think we'll go to the first slide. So the most important bedrock of these voluntary national reviews are the principles that they are founded on. And the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development that was adopted in 2015 defined these basic principles of the voluntary national reviews. And you may already know that the VNRs are designed to be one of the main ways that countries can report on the implementation of the SDGs in their countries. The principles of the VNRs help to guide member states in preparing their report to the high-level political forum. And the most important principle is that these are voluntary reports. They are not required. Countries may do them if they want to. But they are also led by the countries. So the government has the responsibility for leading the process of preparing a voluntary national review. It's led usually by one of the ministries. Sometimes countries can assign the Prime Minister's office or even the president as the lead entity to prepare a VNR. And the VNRs also provide a very broad platform for the creation of partnerships with the ministries that prepare the VNRs, reaching out to stakeholders of all kinds, reaching out to parliaments, to supreme audit institutions, and other actors that perhaps come from the UN country teams that can help prepare data reports or provide input to how things are going with implementation on the ground of the SDGs. It is a learning experience. So the VNRs are sort of a process, not just a report that happens year round. There are experiences, there are successes and challenges, and many lessons learned that feed into this process. It starts when the country decides they're going to prepare a VNR for that year. Many countries actually announce to the president of the Economic and Social Council their intention to conduct a VNR a year in advance. So the process can take more than 1 year in order to be fully comprehensive. The next principle I want to mention is the national circumstances. So these reviews are conducted in accordance with whatever the national policies, priorities, and partners determine to be important for the report. The reports are quite comprehensive, but they can't necessarily cover everything. There is a limitation, I think, to the volume of data, the way the data is presented, and how many contributions are coming from different types of stakeholders. So the national circumstances are quite important, and countries are free to decide what their VNR is going to tell a story about, or how the data is included in the report itself, and also how the presentation at the HLPF will look like. But most of all, what we've seen over the time that VNRs have been prepared is that they become more open, inclusive, and transparent. And this is, I think, probably the most important principle, communicating with all types of stakeholders and being widely available as a process to include you. So these are the principles, and let's move on to the next slide. So you may have already become familiar with what the HLPF, the High Level Political Forum on Sustainable Development, is all about. It meets every year in July under the auspices of the Economic and Social Council, and every 4 years under the auspices of the General Assembly when we call it the SDG Summit. This year, the HLPF will convene from the 7th to the 15th of July, and the VNRs are expected to be presented on Friday the 10th and then Monday through Wednesday, the 13th to the 15th of July. There's always a theme every year that's adopted by ECOSOC. This theme is quite long, as many of the themes are. I think basically it's just talking about, how we are taking action together in the best way, transformative, equitable, innovative, and coordinated actions to implement the SDGs for everyone. This is the theme this year, and each year a cluster of goals is reviewed in the thematic review sessions of the HLPF that occurred during the first week. This year, the forum will be examining progress on Goal 6, on clean water and sanitation, Goal 7, on affordable and clean energy, Goal 9 on industry, innovation, and infrastructure, Goal 11 on sustainable cities and communities, and every year the forum reviews progress towards Goal 17 on the means of implementation and partnerships for the goals. Now, one thing important to note is that the VNRs that are presented every year should report on all 17 SDGs and not just focus on the cluster of goals that are under review that year by the forum. This year also, the HLPF will be strictly in person, although there will be a webcast, live broadcast on UN Web TV. Next slide. So as I mentioned just now, there have been 10 years of VNR reports, and we've been able to look at how they've changed over time. Ali mentioned that many, many countries have done more than one report. In fact, 10 countries have reported 4 times, and this year, in fact, we have Togo and Uruguay who are reporting for the 5th time. This means that we have now a collection of 402 VNR reports in our global database, which is available online. Almost 150 countries have reported more than once, so we're nearing universal reporting. 190 countries plus the European Union have presented at least one VNR. And this is a really great repository of all kinds of information for all of these countries who have taken the time to do this exercise. Next slide, please. So this year, we have 36 countries reporting, preparing VNRs for the HLPF in 2026. Many of you here today come from one of these countries. And this table gives you a sort of picture of the region breakdown, the frequency of the reporting for each country. And I would note that we are very happy and excited that 19 countries this year are coming from the Africa region. The strong showing from this region is really great to see, and every country is reporting for at least the 2nd time. We also have 7 SIDS countries reporting this year. And overall, from this collection of 36 VNRs, I believe that 30 of these countries are developing countries. And I believe 14 of them are least developed countries as well. So we love to see it. We appreciate the hard work that member states do, and we really encourage involvement from all stakeholders. Next slide, please. Okay, so at the HLPF, here are the modalities for the presentations. When countries come to New York to present their VNRs, they have 10 minutes for a virtual presentation. There are two types of formats. We have the individual format or the panel format. The individual format is where a country gives its presentation, followed by questions and answers from the floor. A panel format includes several countries, and after the presentations are given, then there's a group discussion for all of the countries that are involved in that panel. So those are the two basic types of formats for presenting a VNR. But in each case, the presentations are followed by 15 minutes of questions and answers from other countries, as well as a designated speaking slot for a stakeholder group. And we try to target, as Nelia will probably talk more about in detail, we try to target stakeholders that are actually engaged in the process of preparing the VNR from that country to speak in response to the VNR presentation. So this is something that the major groups and other stakeholders VNR task group decides and guides. But we in the Secretariat at UNDESA are also present in the room, helping to guide the presentations as well as the questions and answers during the discussion. So next slide. This slide will give you direct links to some of the most important resources in preparing a VNR. The main one is the VNR handbook. And this year we have new versions of the handbook for 2026. We have translated the handbook into French and Arabic and Spanish this year, and you can find them all on our website here listed at the top of the slide. Within the handbook, it contains the voluntary common reporting guidelines for VNRs. These were updated in December of 2024. They help countries to prepare sort of a checklist on the steps that they need to take to prepare VNRs that are inclusive, evidence-based, with stories on progress and challenges, and sort of a way forward and next steps. In addition, our database includes many tools, over 100 tools to support the VNR process. There are things such as, stakeholder guides, how to include parliaments, how to include UN country teams and other entities from the UN. And so in the database, you also have all of the VNR reports that I mentioned. And if you're interested to see, for example, what your country has done before, we encourage you to access that database and look up the VNR reports that have been presented in the past. Another great resource is a publication entitled What is a Good Practice? It's a framework to analyze the quality of stakeholder engagement prepared by UNDESA and UNDP. I believe this publication is also available in French on the website. And finally, every year we produce a report in the fall, in let's say October, synthesizing all of the VNRs that were presented that year at the HLPF to give people in the world sort of an overview of what those VNRs have said. Because the reports themselves can be literally hundreds of pages long, the synthesis report allows anyone to get a snapshot of some of the most emerging trends and important cross-cutting issues that countries have been reporting on that year. So you can find this year's VNR synthesis report summarizing the reports from 2025 that were presented in July of last year. So I think that's all I have. If there's one more slide. Nope, so that's it from my side. Thank you so much for inviting us to present this introduction to the VNRs. And now I will hand over the floor to my colleague Nelia with many, many thanks again. And if there are questions for us, I will be available to answer in the chat or during the discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Tonya, as usual, and and Oli also for opening our session. And I will continue. And just hello also from my side to everyone, my name is Nelly Rahimova. As Oli mentioned already in the beginning, I'm co-chair of the VNR task group together with Aysata Indiaye. And today, we are organizing the session, and I will focus indeed on the process of stakeholder engagement, what you can do in the process of VNRs, and especially within our processes of major groups and other stakeholders. So as already mentioned before, VNR process is an inclusive and open process, and not only governments can participate in that, and this is actually illustration from the UN DESA handbook about what kind of stakeholders can engage in VNR process. And indeed, we always, every year, encourage colleagues to use voluntary national reviews for improve their national policies, to use it possibility as a review what has been done for different marginalized groups, what has been done in terms of improvements of any kind of developments inside the country. SDGs are tools for that, and we believe that VNRs can be used for advocacy purposes, and that's why we are also committed and are here for you to answer your questions today. What can be done to use this possibility this year if your country is reporting in the best way. So if we look at what kind of possibilities of engagement are possible, and of course from national to national context it's different, but from the years of experience, we see that, of course, stakeholders can engage through the processes which are led by the government. They can do some self-organizing processes. And also what we offer additional opportunity as major groups and other stakeholders is another way to engage in VNR process. And I will talk more, of course, about that a bit later. But to start with, of course, we encourage all the stakeholders to look at what kind of possibilities governments provide to engage in VNR process. And I think Tonya and Oli can confirm that over years we can see that more and more governments really are taking the engagement process more seriously, and that if from my personal experience, if in 2016 it was just the beginning of the process and understanding what stakeholder engagement process means in VNR during the reporting year, that now many governments really investing their time and resources into engagement process, and we really encourage you to look and see what is happening inside the country, if there are any possibilities to engage. And here I just provided several examples what can be done by the governments. Some governments encourage stakeholder engagement already at the early stage. They organize some consultations. They welcome inputs, direct inputs to the text. Some governments consider to engage stakeholders at the review process, and then colleagues can provide feedback and comments, maybe actually again give some inputs into the text. And we also see that some governments actually make stakeholders part of their delegations, then civil society or other stakeholder groups can be part of the panel during the presentations, or providing additional comments from the floor, and so on and so forth. So as I said, the process can be different, but please consider and consult and see what your government is doing, and use this possibility to engage in the process as early as possible. And I think it would be really right time right now to try to find out this information, because we will not be able to provide information for each country in this context. At the same time, we encourage any kind of stakeholders in any kind of country to consider also self-organizing processes. It again can be done in a different ways. For example, Oli is here with us, and Action for Sustainable Development. His organization supports People Scorecard. It's another tool what can be done by civil society, precisely organizations in terms of possibility of how to use VNR year in order to assess the situation in the country. But we also encourage and collect parallel reports, or they can be called in a different way: civil society reports, shadow reports, spotlight reports. We as MGOS collect these reports on our website because unfortunately they are not still officially recognized as a reporting tool, but still we believe that it's really important when civil society groups or wider stakeholder groups are coming together and trying to assess, review what's the progress, what are the challenges, provide recommendations. And it's a widely used practice. Many countries are having this kind of reports, and as I said, we are trying to collect them, and you can also have a look at our web page. Here the link is on the bottom, and also even submit your own reports that we can publish them later. And coming to the part of major groups and other stakeholders, it's another way of engagement. And here I would like just to remind you all what major groups and other stakeholders are. It's a network of volunteers recognized by member states and by the UN. It mobilizes civil society and other stakeholders in the meaningful engagement on sustainable development processes around the UN. And it's an open and self-organized mechanism. We have a global coordination mechanism, which is including the representative from 22 constituencies, which I will just show you shortly the list. And within our coordination mechanism, we also have task groups. And as I mentioned before, for example, I represent VNR task group, and we coordinate processes around VNR engagement. So here we have a list of all major groups and other stakeholders. You can also find more information on it on our website, mgos.org. And if you are not part of any stakeholder group, you, I believe, should be able to join one of them if you see something really relevant, the issue you are working on. So I really encourage you to have a look at our webpage and check, because of course I will not go now into details, but this is the constituencies which MGOS right now have. And just to explain you why we are doing what we are doing, because we as major groups and other stakeholders have rights to engage in the processes during high-level political forum, HLPF. We can attend official meetings, preparatory meetings. We have a possibility to intervene in official meetings, submit documents and oral contributions, recommendations, and also organize side events and round tables. And just because we have this right, we are trying to make sure that this possibility, this opportunity is indeed used for those who must be heard, for most vulnerable and marginalized groups. And that's why we are coordinating this process during VNR sessions, which are happening every year. So what does that mean in practice? In practice, it means that one of you during the VNR session in July at a high-level political forum will have opportunity to deliver 2-minute collectively developed statement with comments and questions to the government which present VNR to your government. And here you can see the picture of colleague from Nepal, actually, I think from 2024, when she raised questions and provided her comments to the government of Nepal, which was presenting the voluntary national review at the session. But before this momentum happens, there is actually a really long process behind that. And here we have a schedule what we are doing with the stakeholders in order to have this 2-minute presentation happening during the HLPF. And because you are here, you probably have seen the information you somehow got here, because we indeed started our preparation process in January when we shared widely information that now we have a final list of VNR countries for 2026, and we encourage all stakeholders to join the process, and we still invite colleagues to join the process. So please, if you see, if you think that this kind of process is relevant for your colleagues, for other groups you are working parallelly in your country, please encourage them to join this opportunity of the VNR year. And in February, which is now, we are holding webinars together with UNDESA. Again, encourage stakeholders to join the process to explain how it works. In March and April, and also in February, if we are talking about Asia-Pacific region, there are a series of regional forums on sustainable development, where we also encourage our colleagues who are located in different regions to bring more stakeholders on board, to inform them about VNR process and reporting countries. And usually after or a bit before that, in April, we already start the process of preparation statements itself. So as you probably seen, we share to get engaged, you need to fill out the form, which is already opened. And thank you very much for those who already filled it out. And if you had any technical issues, please try to go to the page again, and the form is still there, and try to fill it out again. So and for those who submitted the information and used the form, we will contact you in April when for each country the facilitator will be appointed, who will organize online meetings for discussing what the statement should be about, and so on and so forth. In May, we proceed with the selection of the speaker, which I will explain now a bit later in more detail, because of course we can have only one speaker for the country. And of course in June we have final preparations, final polishing of the statement, and I don't know, speaker identification if necessary, and in July the forum is happening itself. So, of course, we would like to have the most open, transparent process, and we have long experience of organizing this. And over the years, we developed our own principles, how we organize stakeholder engagement process during the VNR year. And of course, for us, it's important that the statements are developed by diverse groups, ensuring the respect for human rights, gender equality, inclusivity. So participants must commit to principles of respect, tolerance, and nonviolence. We also ask, even in this registration form already, to agree with these principles, because for us it's really important that we don't have any issues on the way with and have a mutual understanding of how this work should be organized. Indeed, we sometimes have conflicting situations, and in this case, Vienna Task Group coordinators are ensuring transparency and safety for all the participants, and this is the practice that was developed over years. The statement itself, when it's prepared, of course, we always emphasize that it should focus on national issues, and the participants also welcome to look at cross-cutting issues, not, for example, not only focus on SDGs under reviews or anything like that. So yeah, it should be again open and inclusive process. And in terms of statement delivery, we always encourage the national group, the group which is working on a statement, to consider to have one national stakeholder and alternate to be chosen by the participants and coordinated through coordination of task group to select the speaker that will deliver the collective statement. And of course, the speaker in this case should be aware that they are not allowed to change any kind of content, that they need to follow our rules and recommendations. Also, we coordinate this work together with UNDESA in terms of time limits, where the person sits, and so on and so forth. Yeah, in this case, the full agreement and coordination with the Vienna task group is required to ensure timely preparation and proper delivery of the statement. So, and the last point, which I really would like to focus on, just because it's always sometimes can be an issue, and in last years we have some problems with the speaker selection due to limited resources, and also unfortunately we have if HLPF, and I think it will be like that, that it still will be happening in New York. We also have issues with the visa and bringing people inside the US. So that's why on this slide, you can see some criteria that I mentioned, unfortunately, which we really would not like to have, but have always to consider and pay attention to that. So during the election of the speaker, of course, we open this process to people who register for statement preparation. That's why we encourage you to register for the engagement process through the form that I already mentioned. And we are try to organize the most democratic election and process which is possible. It's of course also coordinated and by the group, how they can see the process. So we are there more as an observers and trying to make sure that everything is done properly without any kind of conflicts. And we also encourage to identify alternate speaker just in case of any kind of emergency, that we have a person who can also deliver the statement. At the same time, for us, it's important that the speakers don't have any affiliations with the government. They should not be part of the official delegation or be accredited by the government. And at the same time, here, MGOS is indeed have resources in terms of assisting with accreditation to high-level political forums, so it should not be an issue if the speaker is selected. At the same time, as I mentioned, we have more and more issues last years with traveling in the United States. And that's why we really encourage people who have already visas and resources to come to New York to consider themselves to be as speakers. because the support for visa can be provided, but as we see in last years, it took longer sometimes for people to get visas. So please, if you believe that you would like, you have resources, for example, but don't have visa, just consider to apply for visa as soon as possible in order to be able to be in New York in July. So limited funding is available. I believe that we this year don't know if it will be available or not. So I would say that right now from MGOS, and I think maybe Oli can also later comment on that. Last year, we didn't have any funding for VNR speakers from our side. So that's why, again, please take care of the funding by yourself. And in case if suddenly some miracle happened, of course, we will consider the least developed countries for funding and that's why, yeah, I also encourage you to see what kind of possibilities you have on the ground. So I think just to again encourage you to go to our web page. You actually probably registered for this webinar through that page, but if you didn't fill out the form, please fill it out. And also I really encourage you to share this information for those who are not here, but who are really probably important people for the reflection on the situation in your country, for most marginalized and vulnerable groups. It's really important that they are part of the process, even if they are not able to travel to New York. For them, for us, it's important that they are part of the statement preparation, that they are their views considered in that. Even it's quite short statement, just 2 minutes, but for us, we really try to make sure that people are engaged and have possibility to be heard. And we will share the slides with you after the session, and here are also some resources from our side in terms like link to the to the form itself for participation. Also, you can find the previous MGOS statements for your reference, what your colleagues or maybe even you directly asked during previous VNR sessions. Also links to the parallel reports, which I mentioned. We also collect different engagement documents in multiple languages for your understanding at the Padlet, where you can, where we also will share this presentation. And also, recommendations which were prepared by special rapporteur in the past on how actually civil society should participate in the 2030 agenda processes, just for your reference, like what kind of rights we have in this process. So just once again, here you can find the QR code to the web page where you can find the link to the form. I will share the link to the form now in the chat. And now I think we can take some questions. Oli, if you've seen some questions already in the chat, because I couldn't see the chat.
Yes, thanks so much, Nelia. That was really excellent. And thank you again to Tonya joining us from the UN side, from DESA. Yes, I did see a few questions in the chat, and while you were talking, I was also putting the links. So again, people should have seen the links to the page with the parallel reports on the major groups and other stakeholders website, as well as the page which gives you the summary of all the major groups and other stakeholders. So I wanted to just pick up on a few points that came in the chat. The first one is a reminder that there are 22 different constituencies recognized under the major groups and other stakeholders. And this started already with the Rio Earth Summit in 1992 and was updated in 2015 when the SDGs were agreed. So there are many different stakeholder groups, NGOs, where I come from, but also women's major group, children and youth, indigenous peoples, local authorities, business, trade unions, older persons, persons with disabilities, LGBTI. So there are many, many different constituencies recognized. If you're not yet part of one of those constituencies, you'll be able to see on the link there, and you'll be able to find the contact name for the focal point for that constituency so you can get in touch and look to join the most relevant constituency for you. So that's the first thing. So that's in terms of joining the constituencies. Then when it comes to the actual process of drafting, as Nelia set out, I think it's really important that we remind people that it's really important that you sign up to join the drafting for the country, either where you're based or where your operations take place. So each of these drafting teams are made up of people from the country who are active in the country, who understand the complexity, and who are able to then jointly draft a 2-minute statement. So it's really important, if you want to bring the views from your country, to join that drafting team and to choose the country in which you're based. So there will be separate teams working on all the different statements, and each of those teams is being facilitated by someone from the coordination mechanism. So if you haven't yet signed up, please make sure to sign up, and we'll make sure to share the link again afterwards. And then finally, I did want to also pick up on the point that's been raised about what happens after the VNRs and the risk of reprisals that we've seen. And this is unfortunately something that has become more of a challenge in recent years with a number of governments. And we do know of cases where those who've spoken at the VNR have afterwards felt intimidated by their government representatives. So if that were to happen, we do have a very close relationship, as Tonya mentioned in the chat, with the Office of the High Commissioner of Human Rights. They are very aware and they do follow up. And we have had situations where they have followed up to accompany that person, to help them, to make sure that they understand what their rights are, and also to support them when they get back home through the country offices of OHCHR. So there is a process in place. And if anything were to happen, please make sure to let us know and whoever the person is from the coordination mechanism involved in your country. So it's really quite a well-established process now, but we really welcome new participants every year to get involved in the VNRs. So those were just a few that I spotted, but perhaps Tonya would also like to add some additional remarks.
Sure, Ollie, thank you very much. It's great to see all the interest and the level of engagement from everyone in the chat. So thank you for introducing yourselves. One thing I would add is that over time, again, with practice at the HLPF, with the presentation of these voluntary national reviews, we have worked from the Secretariat side to try and improve the ways in which civil society voices can be heard. And thanks to Ollie and Nelia and their teams working together with you, I think the improvement can happen every year in terms of which voices we bring into the room. I think one question here is that does the speaker need to be from that country? Well, sometimes the speaker from the particular country that wants to speak may have difficulty traveling or getting a visa to the US, for example, to come to the HLPF. So in some cases, where we've had a speaker who was designated to deliver a statement on behalf of a certain group in the room at the HLPF, there are times where we have somebody deliver that statement on their behalf. These are difficulties that we try to work around, but sometimes we find that the actual participation in the room may not be what we had hoped in terms of whether it's funding to bring the speaker to New York or access to travel. So we sometimes do have speakers that speak on behalf of the stakeholder group in that country. Perhaps it will be from the regional level mechanism that's also supporting that group, because obviously there's a lot of interlinkages amongst the different stakeholder groups. So we do try to have as broad representation as we can, and ideally, the person speaking in response to the VNR would come from that country, but it doesn't have to be the case. Let's see, what else could I add? There are so many resources online. Again, for those of you that need additional support, please do feel free to reach out to us. I think Ollie is really a great source of all the information, and we in UNDESA can also provide support as we get closer to the HLPF. But another thing I think I wanted to mention is engagement at the regional sustainable development forums is also really important. And each of the regions has a sustainable development forum in the spring before the HLPF. And many of those forums include a stakeholder workshop and a VNR or VLR workshop, where voluntary local reviews are also part of the process. And these regional forums are great opportunities for you to be involved in the process of preparing the VNR and having your voices heard and your group recognized by the member state preparing the VNR. And we encourage you to take part in the regional forums, because these are sometimes much more accessible to groups in the region rather than trying to travel to UN headquarters. But the process is still connected. So the outcome of the VNR process at the HLPF really builds on what happens even at the regional level during some of these workshops. So I think those are two key points I wanted to add. If there's any other questions directed to me specifically, please let me know. Thank you.
Yeah, I can just add that I also answered it in the Q&A section, but colleagues were asking if somebody works for multiple countries and if they want to contribute to multiple countries' statements. So in this case, you need to fill the form multiple times for each country separately, because this is how, for us, it's easier to manage. So if you would like to contribute to the statements of different countries, then please consider that. But at the same time, we really encourage you only to join the groups of particular countries if you directly involve in work in these countries, if you are originally not from this country. So please do not join just for the sake of joining the process, because we understand that people are motivated to, I don't know, to understand how it works or something like that. But please, we really screen the lists of people who registered after and try to really provide space for those who are actually from the countries which are reporting this year, because we see it as a process of respect. So please consider that we need to provide space for those who are from the countries which are reporting. So it's about mutual respect and understanding, and providing space for those who really must be heard during this process. Ollie, I don't know if you would like to add anything.
Well, maybe just in addition, I see there are quite a few questions about visas and restrictions to access the US. We know that it's a very challenging time at the moment, and the rules have been changing, and the visa process is becoming more difficult. Unfortunately, we as a team are not able to directly assist when it comes to the visas. That is something you would need to arrange yourself. We know it's very difficult at the moment, but we can provide the registration. We'll be working with DESA. Hopefully, the registrations will be open soon. And so once you have the registration, you can present that to the visa office. But we do know that it will be challenging this year. And where possible, we really encourage you to join the drafting team so that even if you're not able to travel to New York, your views will be heard through the draft that you prepare. That's why the drafting is so important because uh, it's really the moment when you're collectively coming up with the key messages, and that's what we really encourage you to get involved with. We will try, where possible, to ensure whatever support there might be for those to attend in New York, but it will be a challenge for all of us, unfortunately, and we know that it's going to be extremely expensive this year as well because it coincides with the World Cup football events, so that will produce an additional barrier of high cost, and so we are prepared that it will be more difficult for many of us to attend this year. But that's why it's so crucial to join the drafting team and to get your views heard through the drafting team.
Yeah, I don't know. Do we have any other questions?
I just answered one of the questions in the Q&A from Nigeria. So Nigeria is not presenting a VNR this year, but they presented in 2025 as well as 2020 and 2017. So I think this really applies to countries, the 36 countries presenting in 2026. However, it doesn't mean that if your country is not presenting this year that you can't be involved. And we would still encourage you, as part of the VNR process, to reach out and connect with the focal points in the government side if your organization wants to be involved. They may or may not be preparing to do a future VNR. We only have 4 years left of the 2030 agenda, really, in terms of VNR reporting. And we're not sure how the process will look like beyond 2030. These discussions are just beginning to take shape. And there will be an official beginning to the discussions of post 2030 after the SDG summit in 2027. So, however, it is important for everyone to be involved in all aspects of the work that your country is doing, whether or not they are presenting this year. And I'd like to also just appreciate the fact that so many of you are working on behalf of these marginalized groups that you are mentioning in the chat and in the questions. It's so important, and I love to see it because groups like migrants and refugees or persons with disabilities or those that are being left behind, really, we want to hear their voices. And so this is just one avenue that stakeholder groups can be engaged in sustainable development. There are so many other ways to be involved, and we really encourage you to find as many avenues as you can to include the experiences that groups are having and to make the voices heard by the governments, whether or not they're preparing a VNR for this year. Thank you.
Yeah, I would also let me answer some questions. First of all, yeah, there was a question about regional forums. I just send the link to the person, and I see there is somebody asking if someone who is turning 18 can participate in the process, and I think so because we also have major groups of children and youth within our constituency, and of course we never restrict participants from the statement preparation based on any age. So yeah, please feel free to join the process as well. Plus, there are questions about what happened if the government denies CSO to draft VNRs and reports. As I mentioned, and this is what I was talking about, that of course we understand that situations in terms of civic space are really different from country to country. And we understand that also there could be even safety and security issues. And if you looked at our form, we also have questions about that. If you have any security possibly can have any security problems. So first of all, we really try to provide space for all the stakeholders and for those who probably don't feel safe, and organize the safe environment for you. Also possibilities to participate anonymously, and this year we will again take care of that, and try to make sure that everyone feels safe despite of the situation inside the country. And that's why we actually encourage you, if you don't feel, for example, safe in participating in consultations with your governments, or preparing the shadow report in terms of self-organizing. I think that the MGOS process is actually really process for you. At least we try to make sure that people can safe and still can raise their voice and of course, we cannot guarantee you complete safety, but at least we will try to do our best in this term. So please also consider to join the process if you want to raise some burning issues during this period and in the statement. Anything else? I'm just looking at the questions.
I have shared in the chat the link to the HLPF webpage that lists the regional forums, that provides links to each of the regional commissions that host these regional forums. So you can go to the webpage for HLPF preparations and see the regional forum links. Thank you.
Yeah, just more questions in terms of, we don't have all countries in the list. We have only 36 countries which are reported. I think Tonya already mentioned that. In terms of support for parallel reports, we don't provide as MGOS any support for that. We probably will have some, we can organize some informative session or some webinar in terms of how parallel reports can be developed. And for that, I also would encourage you to sign up for the form, because we usually use the links, use the your emails to share the information for upcoming sessions. And registration form, when I think if you're asking about registration form for HLPF, then in this case I really encourage you to subscribe to MGOS newsletter, because such kind of information, and I can share it in the chat, where you can subscribe to MGOS newsletter. This is what we usually, as major groups and other stakeholders, sharing in our newsletter. And in general, I would encourage everyone to subscribe if you want to receive any updates from MGOS, not only about VNR task group work, but any other kind of activities.
Can I just restate something, Nelia, because it keeps coming back on the chat. Just to be absolutely clear once more, the drafting teams for each country are only just starting now. Now is the right time to sign up via the form. Please encourage your members, whoever's working in the countries, in those VNR countries, only the VNR countries, to sign up via the form. They will then be invited to be part of the drafting team. That's the process going forward from now. And we have quite a few months until July, so there's plenty of time. The process is only just beginning. That's why we're hosting this webinar. And we're really glad to see so much interest in the chat. Please do make sure to sign up via the form that Nelia has shared, and we will definitely be in touch. You'll be hearing from the focal point for each country over the coming weeks once you've signed up to the form. And that way we have all of the names of those who are interested in one place, makes it much easier for the coordination. So please do encourage everyone to sign up on that. And again, as we mentioned at the beginning, tomorrow at the same time, we'll have this same webinar in French. And then on Thursday, again, we'll have this webinar in Portuguese, because this year there are quite a number of Portuguese-speaking countries presenting, not just Brazil, but a number of African Lusophone countries. So please do encourage people also in those countries who might be wanting to hear this information in either French or Portuguese to sign up as well. Excellent. Thank you. Back to you, Nelia.
Yeah, I think we answered the majority of questions, and I can just support what you just said, Oli. If you colleagues can also invite other colleagues who probably don't speak English to the next webinars, and we announced it as a 1 hour webinar, so I think we covered everything we need. But also, we will share with you the recording and the slides of the session. And also there you will find our email address for the task group. So if you have any further questions, you can always reach out, and we will try to do our best to answer you and follow up with any questions and concerns or whatever you have. So I think we can conclude if Oli, Tonya, you agree. And thank you very much for your participation. We are really happy. We had lots of people today joining. So as usual, great that so many people interested. And I hope we will see you all in our drafting teams for the Vienna country so this year.
Thank you, everyone. See you
Thank you.
soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.